Welcome to the G5 Hive and our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be taking a look at the Utah State Aggies, who finished 6-7 in 2023 and capped off their season with an appearance in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. They wrapped up their 2024 spring practice with spring game on April 20th. We have a special guest joining us today. He is the owner, publisher, editor, and recruiting specialist for the only website for Utah State Aggie football and hoops recruiting, the Big Blue USU Aggie News. He is happily married to Amber and a father of 6. He is Brian Phillips. Brian can be found at Brian Phillips A1 on X. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Justice, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Really excited for the opportunity.
Awesome. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. For those not familiar with the Aggies defense they'll be using this year, can you describe that style and scheme that Coach Dreiling plans to run?
More often than not, you're definitely going to see a 4-2-5. So four-man front, 2 linebackers, your traditional corner safety, and a nickel. And that's how it'll go.
In that 4-2-5, I'm assuming they have like one of the safety positions is kind of like a hybrid linebacker / safety, or
no, it'll be a traditional free and boundary safeties. Your 2 staple corners, and then just your nickel guy. You may see that change, like maybe against a heavier run team, but with most Mountain West schools, with the exception of Air Force, they're very pass heavy and like to spread things out kind of like we do. So you're going to see us employ the nickel back much more than maybe say a third linebacker or a hybrid rover safety type thing.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about the guys up front along that defensive line. The Aggies will miss promising youngster Paul Fitzgerald, who transferred to Utah, and Hale Motuapuaka, who graduated. They also bring in a lot of transfers along that defensive line. How has this room looked in the spring and the start of fall camp? And is there anyone kind of standing out so far?
So it's definitely a work in progress. We've got a lot of new faces, and that can kind of slow the process down a little. Especially when you brought so many guys in over summer as well. So it's that they went with a lot of different guys and a lot of different combinations during the scrimmage yesterday. So that tells me that things are still very much wide open all across the board there. We do have some holdovers at end, definitely. Blaine Spires and Kean Sloan both played for the Aggies last year, both seniors. So guys that have got some experience. We had a late addition, Gabe Peterson, followed Coach Dreiling and the New Mexico State guys here. Gabe at New Mexico State last year started 15 games, picked up 55 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. So he was a big addition. That's an all-conference type guy that we just added to the rotation. So defensive tackle wise, we really only have 2 guys that were here last year that returned. Sini Tuiaki and Bo Miley, both are back this year. Sini started all 13 games, 25 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss. So Bo played in 11 games, 14 tackles. But a lot of this is based off of the guys that have come in and transferred. So they've got a lot to figure out in a short amount of time.
So obviously, a lot's going to change here in the next 2 weeks or so.
Right.
But, if you had to make a guess on who you think is out there, Snap One versus Robert Morris, who do you think that is?
Well, I've always had this saying when it comes to the defensive line. There's always starter A and starter B because they rotate so often. Yeah. So, it's not who's first or second on the depth chart. I don't think that guy that may be listed as second on paper really feels that bad because I think they all get about the same amount of reps from, first quarter to fourth quarter. But if we had to roll out a group today, I would say Blaine Spires would probably start at one end. I think Inoka Mageo, another returner from last year, would probably start at the other defensive end. And as far as your nose tackle goes, Sini Tuyaki has been hurt most of summer and spring. If he can return in time for Robert Morris, I think it would be Sini. If not, I think they'd roll out Charlotte transfer Miguel Jackson at nose tackle. And at defensive tackle, I think New Mexico State transfer Gabriel Iniguez would probably be the guy that takes snap one. So he was here for all of spring ball and has been here all summer and really done a good job and stepped up as kind of a leader in a group that with so many new faces, you got to have somebody step up. You're kind of leaderless until somebody steps up and takes that role. And it seems like Iniguez has kind of done that.
Well, like the defensive line, the linebackers also lose their top player from 2023 and leading tackler MJ Tafisi Jr. graduated. They do return promising youngster Logan Peely and Cole Joyce, and they also bring in a couple of transfers as well. Who needs to step up in that linebacker room for this defense to be successful here in 2024?
This is another group that's kind of got a lot of questions. We've got some guys that missed some time with some injuries. Last year, promising sophomore Max Alford got hurt on the very first snap of the Iowa game. That was their first game last year, tore his ACL, and has missed the rest of the year, missed all of spring ball. He's working his way back. We've got a lot of question marks here too, with several transfers added. So we added Division II All-American John Ross May from Lenore Rhine, played 15 games last year, racked up 116 tackles, 15 and a half tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. So that's a guy that comes in with a lot of numbers behind his name. Some of the other transfers that come in, such as John Miller, come in from Oregon State, Clyde Washington from Purdue. He had 3 starts in 12 games last year with 21 tackles. So some of these guys that have moved down from P4 schools, we're hoping that they'll step up and kind of fill those roles that were vacated by graduation and transfers.
Is there a leader in the clubhouse yet, or who do you think might step into that MJ Tafisi Jr. role yet? Or
if I had to pick somebody right now, I'd probably say graduate transfer Clyde Washington from Purdue. I think he could maybe be the Mike linebacker against Robert Morris week 1.
So that's a great lead to the next question. Who do you think would join Washington there as the other linebacker there against Robert Morris?
Like I said, we saw a lot of different combinations yesterday. Utah transfer Jaden Pearson saw a lot of snaps. Like I mentioned, John Ross May, Cole Joyce is definitely in the mix. If I had to pick one guy out right now, I'd go with Jaden Pearson, the transfer from Utah. He's been here since January and has seen a lot of what Coach Dreiling, his game plan is and schematically. So I'd throw Jaden Pearson name out there first.
Well, let's move over to the defensive backfield, and they may have taken some of the biggest hits this offseason, losing Anthony Switzer and Devin Dye to transfer, but they do return second leading tackler Ike Larson, and they brought in a transfer Jordan Vincent. How has that room looked so far in this fall?
Again, some new faces, but experienced faces when it comes to this group. So they added Jordan Vincent. I've got him penciled in as my starter at the boundary safety, strong safety spot. Came from New Mexico State, 15 games, 65 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Honorable mention, Conference USA. So this is a dude that's seen a lot of action, and with already being a starter in Coach Dreiling's defensive scheme in New Mexico State, he's just going to jump in seamlessly and know exactly what's going on. It's like having another coach out on the field. So that'll be a big positive for everyone that is playing out in front of him. Isaac Larson, obviously, he's on everybody's Mountain West all-conference lists. He's made several All-American lists. The kid is just an athlete, got a great sense of the ball and knows how to read the field and read the quarterback. I know he worked really hard this offseason on limiting mistakes and misreads and stuff like that. So I think that he's got a chance this year to really, really elevate his game. And he was already pretty dynamic. Anytime he'd intercept the ball, he had a chance to take it to the house. He blocked several kicks last year. And he's just a really dynamic player when he's out on the field.
Who else do you think might join Vincent and Larson there in the defensive backfield week 1?
So at the nickel back, I think Jaden Francois, graduate senior, will be the starting nickel. He was here last year, 12 games, 7 starts, 57 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, sack, had a pick that he took back to the house last year. So Jaden Francois definitely there. At your 2 corner spots, I think Davin Graham, transfer from Oklahoma, will probably take one of those spots. He missed last season at Oklahoma with a knee injury, so he redshirted. But prior to that at Oklahoma, 28 games, 12 starts, 72 career tackles, 2 interceptions. So another guy that, even though he missed last year, much like Spencer Petras, is battle tested against top flight competition. He's definitely seen the best of the best when it comes to playing in the Big 10 at or the Big 12, at Oklahoma. The opposite corner of Davin Graham, I think it'll be Avante Dickerson. He came in from Oregon late last summer. It took him a while to acclimate himself with the defensive scheme. But once he got in and got going, he played in 11 games. He had 7 starts, credited with 7 tackles, broke up 6 passes. He's got a chance to really make a name for himself this year.
With the loss of Switzer and Dye and the change in there of the coaches on the defensive side, do you think that's going to affect how Ike Larson was used, last year compared to this year? Or do you think like we can expect to see another high number of tackles from him once again?
So the departure of Switzer, I don't really think will affect Ike much, because Switzer, once Max Alford got hurt at the will linebacker, spot last year, they weren't really comfortable with anybody that they had behind Alford. And so Switzer spent the entire season playing out of place and played the will linebacker spot. And that's where Devin Dye ended up stepping up into that strong safety spot. So 2 guys kind of vacated the same spot, but they won't really, it's not going to affect Isaac much at all. Especially adding an experienced guy, like I said, like Jordan Vincent. Isaac's going to be able to have free reign and just roam the field and make plays with his eyes and his feet and his speed.
If you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2024, who are you going to pick, Brian?
I just mentioned him, and even though he started 7 games last year, again, it kind of took him a while to get in and get going and really seeing significant steps. I think Avante Dickerson is going to prove himself to be just a lockdown cornerback. I think he'll match up likely with the opposing team's best wide receiver, and he really has that shutdown corner, not only ability, but mentality. Just a phenomenal athlete. And I think that he's going to be the guy that's really going to make a name for himself this year.
Well, Brian, I just want to thank you again for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and share your knowledge. We greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys reaching out and having me on the show. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're listening in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. And until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.